What was the creepiest thing someone said on the first date part 2? Not what he said but what he did. He fucking stole my keys while I was out of the room and took off into the night. We had an hours-long standoff where he wouldn't answer my calls or texts begging him to return them. I stood by his truck that was parked a few blocks away making sure that he didn't leave with them. Eventually he dropped them off in my car and I got a ride home from the cops. Honestly, one of the scariest episodes of my life. I have a relative in banking. I have checked out all of your family financially. WTF? What do you say to that? Better lock it down now. Huh. While you're ripe for the taking. Referring to my low self-esteem that he picked up on. He asked me if I'd rather go on a cruise or to a resort for our honeymoon. Then sent me a text later to tell me he showed one of his clients my picture and the client told him his girlfriend was pretty. A guy I went out with took me up on his roof where there was a bunch of roadkill laying around. He told me he was learning to do taxidermy. They didn't say anything. It's what they did that creeped me out. They kept taking pictures of me when I wasn't looking. The only reason I knew this was because the first picture they took, they didn't shut the shutter sound off. Described in detail how his female commanding officer liked sex with him so much she raped him repeatedly while he was in the army. He said it with so much pride that it seemed as though it was meant to impress me. Edit, it is possible this was a coping mechanism. Or him trying to convince himself. It simply came with an I'm this good at sex vibe. And I had known this man for less than 2 hours. To me it was the most uncomfortable first date I've had. Don't worry. I'm not a serial killer. Actually. It was me that said it. Took a girl to see an Elton John concert. I was a little intoxicated. We were kissing. I was young and aroused. I whispered into her ear. I would kill to make love to you. Embarrasses me to this day. This is not my story. But my mother's. My mom was a pioneer in online dating. She was really interested in finding someone special. She agreed to meet a guy for dinner, first mistake, and went in to be seated prior to him arriving. He came in. The waitress brought menus and he set down his menu and the first words he spoke were asking my mom if she has ever known anyone who had a penis enlargement. He then went on to explain that he had flown cross-county for this operation and it had gone wrong. He went into great specifics about just how wrong. My mother excused herself to the ladies' room and left out the back door. We still laugh out loud when she reminds us of her search for MR. Right. Do you gain weight easily? Why do you want to ask that? LMAO. This guy wasn't talking at all and I only brought a few talking points cause normally they talk the whole time. I didn't have anything else to say and asked him to start talking and he said, "What I want to talk about can't be said in public." When I ended the date he thought we were going to go to my place to talk and I said no. I got in my car. Noted what car he got into. And took a few breaths to calm down. I looked around and his car was still there. I waited 30 minutes before he left the parking lot and stayed another 15 before I left. He was in the military, Canadian. I asked him if he ever did any volunteer work overseas with the military and he said, "No. I joined the military to kill people, not to help people." Chugged my beer and got out of there as fast as I could. Bragging about going to Cuba and Thailand to meet cheap sex workers. "Can I cut you and drink it?" She was serious. "He's just talking on the phone and inserts, it's not like I want to rape you or anything." He tried to contact me for a face-to-face date. I don't respond. He shows up to my office on a campus. Starts raging and gets security called on him and escorted off. We met online and had been chatting for a while before meeting face-to-face. Soon into the date, he began to talk about how we would be telling the story of this date to our grandchildren. Honestly, if I was vibing with him it might have been a romantic story. But instead it just kind of freaked me out. After getting us lost on the way back to my friend's house. Late at night. In a state I was only visiting. "What? Do you think I'm going to take you out into the woods and rape you?" LOL. He had a loaded gun rack in his truck. And a knife on his belt. I was 15. It was not funny. So full disclosure. I used to be a fan of Hitler. Happened to a friend of mine about 5 minutes into meeting them for the date. He told me I need to be more submissive. Like Thai women. He expected me to be that way because I'm an immigrant from a third world country. And he was upset that I'm too westernized and independent. It was offensive on so many levels. Called their mom in front of me to say they met a real winner and how they were done with their ex. Not sure if this counts, but it was really uncomfortable. He described at length how men are all naturally as violent as those in the movie A Clockwork Orange and how they actively suppress it to fit in with society. This guy also invited me to a pub and proceeded to drink water while buying me G&Ts. Needless to say, I yeeted out of there real quick. I told this guy I played the piano. And like half an hour later he said, if I wanted you to always remember me, I'd break your ring fingers. You know. 'Cause they don't heal well, and then you'd always think of me when playing. Suffice to say, I left the restaurant fairly quickly. Told me I was getting old and needed to get married and have kids soon so my grandparents can meet them. I was 25 and he was 24. The entire conversation was him waving a lot of red flags about wanting a baby mama and partner who hadn't gotten around, and there was no second date. Gross. He told me several times how beautiful his mom and teenage sister were and that he hoped our kids got his genes. Went out with a girl one night and after dinner she drove me up into the mountains. I was new to the area, and after a while, when there were no more lights, she started talking about serial killers. I still remember her saying I used to think about getting away with stuff like that sometimes. We would have cute babies, or my personal favorite for Halloween we could go as a slave and master, haha. Get it? Because you're black. Haha. Well, I told my painful breakup story to every first date for 2 years. So there's that. Maybe not the creepiest thing, but pretty gross. I was hanging with a guy I met through a mutual friend. So we go out for ice cream and go back to sit in his car to listen to music while we have our ice cream. He's sharing his taste in music with me while rubbing my head / playing with my hair. Didn't quite know how to feel, but I figured he was trying to be romantic. Not too long after this, he got to the bottom of his ice cream cone, the one with the chocolate on the inside, and said, "This is your asshole." And tried to show off his rimming skills. I guess. And thought the chocolate would be cute. / I'm cringing just typing this out. Not a good memory. He told me he could rape me if he wanted. He wasn't joking. One time, I was this someone. It wasn't something I said, but something I did. Anyway, I went out for drinks and tacos with a sweet guy from Tinder. It was going pretty well. So when he asked if I wanted to walk home and hang with his roommates, I happily obliged. When we arrived, his roomies were drinking screwdrivers, and asked if I wanted a glass. I said sure. But the thing is, I have a strange compulsion to stir any mixed drink, alcoholic or not, thoroughly every time. I.e., I couldn't drink from the cup until it was stirred. I walked into the dimly lit kitchen and grabbed the first utensil I saw on the drying rack, which happened to be a steak knife. Walking back to the living room, everyone was looking at me like I had turned into a ghost. They straight up thought I was going to murder everyone in the house with a steak knife until I started stirring my drink. LOL. I'm going to cut your head off and mount it to the wall so I can look you in the eyes while I have sex with your corpse. Within knowing each other about an hour he told me he had never wanted kids before, but the moment we met he felt it biologically. Then he told me he wanted to be my son's stepfather as well. Was new in town. Swiping on Tinder because I was bored. Do your friends know you're on a date? No. I could kill you and no one would know, haha. There was no second date. A one-night stand once told me I smelled like his mom. I was Joan of Arc in my former life. I wanna tear you apart. And your friend. Too. Kind of a toss-up. Imho. I went on a date with my cousin's co-worker who I met really quickly once and thought was cute. When we sat down at dinner he started talking about his job and he told me he holds his pee all day because he felt weird taking bathroom breaks around the guys at work. That belongs to me. I basically just went all crazy in detail into the plot. Lore and symbolism in Neon Genesis Evangelion. Never heard from her again. First date, he complimented me at a very intimate setting, "Your legs are so pretty." And I was like, "Oh," and he followed, "Can I have them?" It turns out to be just a bad humor plus anxious line. He was a dork. We dated for a year or so and I still have my legs. I call it a win. Didn't happen on the first date. But during one of our first phone conversations, I asked my husband if he liked serial killers. In my brain it was in the context of finding out whether he'd like a certain book before I recommended it. He did not have that context. I went on a date with an American girl in NYC once, I'm Australian, who insisted on speaking in an Aussie accent the whole time. It was actually a really good accent though. Must share this one. Was actually after the first date. Which went fine. He was a German guy who seemed shy in person. But in text he was so intense. Sending hearts and cheesy things all the time. First weird thing was he said we should marry, we only had one datey, and then I would have a German passport and all the things I want because he had a very good job, and kind of a wealth family in South Germany. I could only picture a red room of BDSM waiting there, but I didn't take it seriously anyway. Next thing was once he asked me if I wanted to roleplay. I thought something normal like cop and pioneers or whatever, but he told me to play Jew and Nazi. Blocked him and didn't see him anymore. Thanks for watching.